Welcome to the Vocational Expert Views channel. I'm Alan Billahus, a vocational expert in Region 4, and this is the third video about SSR 24-3P and its ALJ Training Series from a VE point of view. This video will build upon videos 1 and 2, and we will learn how to be comfortable with ORS data and the new VE testimony under SSR 24-3P so that we can gain confidence and move forward. Understanding SSR 24-3P's core focus. So let's unpack 24-3P. It is to streamline the VE testimony, but in reality, it's going to make VE testimony much longer due to the additional questions and other aspects that you will learn about in the future. The core focus is also about using current data, which is ORS data. It also wants to make sure that the VE use consistent vocational systems and processes that are common in vocational rehabilitation. ORS uses OEWS and SOC codes. The Dictionary of Occupational Titles and Selected Characteristics of Occupations is basically an individual occupation or a group of occupations that are so similar they have the same DOT. However, every DOT has a SOC code, just like every SOC code has multiple DOTs in it. The DOT does not provide job numbers. Occupational Requirements Survey does not provide job numbers per se. It's not part of their research. They get their job numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then they use their mathematical formula based on their research to come up with jobs. If you know about the Occupational Outlook Handbook, it uses Bureau of Labor Statistics jobs, but it uses the group SOC number, not an individual SOC number. And that's the same way that ORS data is used. It takes the group SOC number and then drills it down to a percentage of jobs that would fit your hypothetical. ORS data is gathered directly from employers. Census data is gathered by the people through census instruments. Currently, SkillTran Job Browser Pro has a beta program that's working with ORS BLS data to work with the hypotheticals. Also, Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Requirements Survey also has a beta program that is up and working, but just like the ERE, a lot of times it's not working, so it's not always available. VE testimony is evolving, and as more ALJs become comfortable with the use of ORS data, VE testimony will completely evolve into a total paradigm shift. However, mastering ORS BLS data goes beyond these three videos. ALJs will also soon learn that they will need to adjust their hypotheticals to match how ORS BLS data is collected. You'll begin to see this shift in the coming months. Maybe it'll take 6 months, maybe 9 months, maybe a year, but this shift will be coming and you'll be learning new things. For example, the DOT, the SCO, uses the people digit, temperaments, and talking and hearing when we're looking at working with others. ORS BLS data measures interacting with others drastically different. So combining both of these would require a skill VE, and the crosswalk validity is still unclear, but we'll explore this issue later. Let's compare ORS and DOT. ORS and BLS tracks literacy and education slightly different. For example, ORS actually asks employers, does this person need a high school diploma to do this job? Does this individual need a high school education or above high school? And again, employers answered on this. So that was an employer input. So that offers up-to-date data on low IQ individuals. Now, the dictionary occupational titles use reasoning, math, and language that the analysts came up from learning about the jobs. ORS data even asked employers, does the individual that does this job require literacy? And there are a lot of jobs that does not require reading and writing according to the employers. This will open up more new possibilities for you. When it comes to the SVP, ORS asks employers, unlike the DOT's analyst of judgment, the ORS asks employers, how long does the individual take to learn this job? ORS data and the questionnaire matches Social Security Administration's SVP levels. ORS does lifting up to 25 pounds, while the DOT, the SCO, and the SAA, as of right now, are stuck at the 20-pound limit. So, knowing these differences will help in your rulings. So, let's clarify some SOC versus DOT misconceptions. Social Security Administration suggests that SOC differs from the DOT, but that's a little misleading. All DOT codes fit into a SOC or SOC group. Every SOC group has multiple DOTs in it. So let's take a look at DOT 237.367-038, receptionist. So it's linked to Census Code 5400. It's also linked to OEWS 43 41 71. It's also linked by SOC code 43 4171. And of course, the ONET is 43 4171. So, as you can see, the census code gathers the data in a different group number. However, Occupational Employment Weekly Survey uses a SOC group. The ONET uses a SOC group. Again, do not use the ONET data testimony unless your VE knows what they're doing. Do not allow a representative to bring ONET testimony into your courtroom. Census groups data is gathered by talking to individuals and giving out surveys to individuals, and it's also gathered during the census. Let's take a look at the concept of maximum to range. If you're used to the DOT, you know about the maximum levels, and the DOTs list the maximum expected level of an occupation and not the range. So the DOT lists the highest expected requirements of an occupation, and it was up to the vocational expert to know what the range was, why there was a range, and to help estimate a range if it was needed in testimony. However, many ALJs, even when they were presented this information, wanted to stick with the max requirements to avoid challenges. Let's take a look at what this means. So we're going to look at DOT 299.477-010. This is merchandise deliverer, and it's a medium duty job. And you would expect merchandise would be up to 50 pounds. However, this DOT also covers pharmacy delivery, food delivery, pizza delivery, and flower delivery. As you can see, most definitely food delivery and pizza delivery is most definitely light. The vast majority of flower delivery is also light. So this DOT would have a range of light to medium. Most of the jobs would be performed as light, but the maximum level would be medium. The VE was expected to know that and offer that up in testimony. So the DOT still had a range there. It just had to list the maximum expected requirements. Now, the ORS that we're transitioning to it, the ORS is measuring the range. Why is ORS measuring the range? Well, The Social Security Administration understood that the DOT lists the maximum expected level, and they was missing a lot of jobs because the Social Security Administration knew there was a range within these jobs, and it was much harder for ALJs to support the range even with quality VE testimony. So the Social Security Administration asked the Bureau of Labor Statistics to give questionnaires that address the range. So this range is Social Security Administration testimony, and that's why ORS is gathering information on the range and not the maximum level. Why building comfort with VE testimony on ORS matters. So, why does comfort matter? You need to build trust in the ORS evidence and methodology. This will help you reduce second guessing and will strengthen your rulings against appeals. With SSR 24 3P data focus and knowing that SSR 24 3P is really about ORS data, gaining this confidence is crucial. So, common ALJ concerns with ORS is one thing they don't understand, that it is really Social Security Administration data. Social Security Administration went to the BLS and said, hey, we need this joint project to ask these questions about jobs so that we get a better understanding and more detailed knowledge of jobs. So the number one concern with ALJs is dealing with that range. You're used to the max level. The representatives are used to the max level. The representatives are going to be pushing for that max level. You need to understand and get comfortable with the fact that ORS, or Social Security Administration data, is about the range of requirements within our occupation and not the maximum level. So once you fully grasp ORS data and that it's up to date, it's a statistical mathematical formula. It is Social Security Administration BLS data, and the answers are driven by employers. This is what employers are saying is required for their occupations based on the questions that Social Security Administration and ORS is asking them. In reality, once you get comfortable and we start moving through this system, the only really question and challenge should be, was the hypothetical given correctly? Job numbers are always going to be challenged. So you might be worried about job numbers accuracy, especially with the DOT versus the ORS difference. And granted, the representatives want to talk about SOC groups and SOC group challenges. These are very valid, and I'm going to do a video just based on job numbers. So we are going to address them technically in future videos. However, right now we are addressing them with base level knowledge of ORS data. So let's take a look at a real world example. So, for light work at 20 pounds, which is the Social Security Administration's definition, and that matches the SCO and the DOT, if the VE is using ORS data and says that 50% of this SOC group, again, this is ORS data, is light duty, unskilled work. Now, you might ask, how was that derived? Well, this was derived through questionnaires that the Social Security Administration and the Bureau of Labor Statistics determined which questions to ask an employer. An employer responded, and that information was then collated and used in the statistical mathematical formula to come up with 50% of the groups or jobs within this SOC group are light unskilled. Now we're still left with the lifting up to 25 pounds, and how would the VE address that? So let's recap and get the key takeaway. We've covered how SSR 24 3P data is focused. It's focused totally on ORS and BLS data, and this data is based on the range versus the DOT's max level. The key to comfort is really understanding the difference between the range and the max, and how was the range measured by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is ORS data, which is also Social Security Administration's data. So understanding the range versus the maximum, that is your foundation. So what's next? I will be coming out with more short videos based on ORS data and VE testimony. For example, we'll talk about job numbers. We'll also talk about different hypotheticals that ORS data would allow you to have. As always, you know to go to ssa.gov for more information or Bureau of Labor Statistics.gov. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave a comment or contact me here for questions. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe if you want to follow more training like this.